Now, here's the thing. Sometimes you're going to have some people who look very honest, appear as honest people. They might be somebody who goes to the church, mosque, like every single weekday. They might be somebody who has kids, they might have a family. They might be somebody who says things that seem like morally virtuous. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're genuinely someone who has good character. That could actually be a performance and not the real authenticity. So this is where it becomes difficult. But the truth is, if you can actually develop a discernment by becoming someone who knows more about how to ethically sell, as well as knows the psychological ways that people will be manipulated, this can be great protection for yourself. A great book that I'd recommend reading would be Robert Cialdini's The Psychology of Influence, because this is really going into the psychology of how it all works. The more you understand psychology, the more that you'll be able to protect yourself. And not just understanding psychology in general, but understanding your own psychology. Because if you know what your own psychology works like, for example, I'm more impulsive, whereas other people are more instinctual. So some people could get you into an opportunity, even if you're not impulsive, you're instinctual, by doing reverse psychology, right? So the more that you understand this, the more that you can see if a person is trying to manipulate you, right? As opposed to ethically persuading through transparency, openness, and high consideration. If you've seen the topic of conversation today on school, then you'll know that it's actually about how to become unscammable in a world where we're going to have more and more hyper sophisticated scams. So what I was basically saying is that one of the reasons for why this is going to be inevitable and why we have to make sure that we prepare and protect ourselves as much as we possibly can is because of the way that technology is advancing at an exponential rate. So before, people who were scamming, if you look at all the way back when there wasn't even such a thing as online business, in order to scam someone, like they'd have to physically see that what they were holding in their hands and what they were buying was not something that they wanted. So it was a lot simpler back then in terms of how commerce would be traded. If you had a physical product, if you have a service, then of course, like that's another way that even back then you could have got scammed because a person could have just done a terrible job and ran away and left you in a crappy position. But it was nowhere near as prevalent as it will be going into the future. And this is evident by how quickly we have seen people bring out these new scam opportunities that have been found out and they've got into a lot of trouble for it. So it's becoming a lot more regular. Like before, I remember maybe go back about 5-6 years ago when I would speak to people on the phone, like some people were a little bit scared that it could be a scam, but not everybody had been scammed. Whereas now, like over the last 12 months, what I've found is that it's becoming a thing where more and more people either have been or they just know someone that's close to them that has been burnt, been scammed. And it's pretty sad because at the end of the day, when this happens, even though it's only money that you're losing, it could be that you end up losing a relationship. It could be that you end up not trusting yourself anymore. It could be that even worse, I think one of the worst ones that people don't actually see is that it could actually become a subconscious block for why you yourself don't want to put yourself out there as someone that can help another person to get results within business or any area. Because subconsciously what's happening is you are trying to aim to become successful, but if your subconscious is afraid that you're going to get found out, you're going to get seen, then you'll actually feel this uncertainty and you'll feel unsafe moving towards that particular goal of who you're becoming, because you don't want to be seen as that type of person, right? So I think that's one of the worst things, is that it can actually destroy human potential. And to me, that's a big tragedy. So yeah, the world is getting a lot more sophisticated, and I feel like my story with how I personally got scammed is actually a way that I can show you how much the world is becoming way more sophisticated with the scams. Because when it happened for me, it was when there was a new industry, a new opportunity that was arising in the entire world. So I wanted to be early in this. So this was about 2022, 2023. And it was a couple of years ago. And it was around the time where crypto NFTs were being marketed by even mainstream media, not even just Facebook and Instagram gurus. Like mainstream media, people were talking a lot about cryptos, NFTs, how it's going to be the next big thing. And within any industry, within any market, like there's always going to be some legitimate opportunities. And whilst that's happening, simultaneously, because of the law of polarity, there's going to be some ones that are scandals, frauds, that we want to be able to avoid. And for myself, like up until that point, I had been scammed like a couple of times for like concert tickets, which was only 50, £100 or whatever. So sometimes I had been scammed, but it was never really a thing where I lost a lot of money. But with this one in particular, I ended up losing roughly around about £10,000. So for me, that was brutal, because in a single year, in any job that I'd ever worked in, I'd never really earned more than 22, 24K salary, which when you think about it, after tax and what I was left with in a year, that was practically like a year's salary gone overnight. And one of the worst things about it for me too is that some of it wasn't even my own money. My grandfather even lent me some money. I don't lent it to me, but he just trusted me with some money when I showed him some of the numbers for this investment that had been shown to me. And it was also some of his money that got taken as well, which wasn't the best thing for my relationship with him. So yeah, that was like the sad thing about that. But in actually sharing why it all happened, I think this is what you have to be hyper vigilant with, or not hyper vigilant, but just more vigilant with in the future with these scams, in terms of how they can get you. So for myself, what happened was I actually joined an investment club, and I'm not gonna like give all the details as to who the people were involved and everything that happened in that way, just because it's not my style to bring someone down. I'm doing this more so to provide value. And even to this day, like I don't actually have any animosity in my heart towards the people who were involved. Actually, I'm grateful for the experience, but I'll let you know how I came to that particular conclusion. So what ended up happening was I went into this investment club, and I knew that there were some legitimate investment clubs where you could essentially like pay to get in. and that would make you an accredited investor, where you would then gain access to certain investment opportunities of which other people wouldn't be shown in public. It was more so kept for the private. And the reason why was because they didn't want to taint the group by just letting anybody see it and then not actually value it or spread rumors about it, whatever. So I understood why that was the case. And for this club, it was like 5,000 to get into the club. So that's not the money that I lost in the scam. That's like actually separate, but I always knew that that was the fee. So there's no problem with that. But to me, that was a steal because I actually knew of investment clubs where you had to pay 50K to get in, you had to pay 100K to get in, you had to pay $1 million to get in. Like I knew the levels that existed, but with this one, I thought it was a steal because of the access that I was actually getting and who was involved. Like there was still multi-millionaires in there, a couple of billionaires in there. And I thought this is going to help me to level up my net worth, my network and the net worth because of it. So I invested into this club where I went in because it was actually one of my friends who I trusted as an entrepreneur that introduced me to the founder of this club. And she was someone who, to this day, I don't think had any ill intention whatsoever, but she just experienced some results for herself and thought, why not share it with somebody else? But funnily enough, even when she shared the opportunity, I remember her sending me a voice note and I was just like, when you're sending me this voice note right now, like it feels like you sound nervous, which was kind of strange because I knew this person. She was also in sales. I didn't really see her be shy like this before. So I was like curious as to why she felt that way. But I ignored it. And that's probably where my instincts should have kicked in a little bit because I should have been more vigilant in terms of understanding like why she felt these nerves rather than feeling lighthearted about it. So I ended up getting on a call with this guy who is the founder of the community. And I thought, you know what, from the very get-go that I spoke with him, we connected. I resonated with his story. There was so much that I could see in him that I could actually gain value from just by the fact that he was like years ahead in a very similar niche and industry that I wanted to be in, and was absolutely killing it. And not only that, but if you know who Bob Proctor is, the mentor of everybody's mentors, and even for myself, like he inspired me so much by a lot of the content that he's got out there on YouTube and his books and things like this. I mean, this guy's like the godfather of personal development, aside from Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, Jim Rohn. So he was super respected. And I learned that this guy who was the founder, he actually was associated with Bob Proctor for many, many years. Like he went to his house, they had dinner together, he got coaching and mentoring from him. And I think he invested something like 50K just to have that experience with Bob Proctor as his mentor and coach from the age of like 19, 20 years old, all the way to 25, 26. So I could just tell by the way that he was showing up with his confidence, his communication, everything like this, that he'd had some really good mentors around him. So I was like, even if I'm not going to get any financial returns from this investment, I know that I can learn a thing or two off this guy, because not only were they offering these assets where you could invest into it and get returns, but they were also offering mindset calls and business related calls, sales calls, like where I was learning sales. But I'd say the main thing that I personally received as value from going into this club, again, like wasn't any financial returns because I didn't get any. But the main thing that I received as value was I learned how to become a world-class communicator. And I had a desire to be one as well. It was like literally a few days before that, I told my friend, I want to be a world-class communicator. And it was like I manifested the experience because I got to every single day for free. I got to watch him communicate. I got to ask him questions. I got to pick his brain. So I actually felt a lot more like, to me, a coaching program where I got tons of value and also tons of belief. Because another big thing as well is that if you are willing to go and invest into a high ticket coaching program and you're not necessarily getting one-to-ones or a person who is with you for years and years and years, one of the best things that it gives you is this next level conviction where you personally believe that if someone else can do this, and if I'm the type of person that will buy, then there must be other buyers like me. Like, this is a real thing. So automatically I got that belief. And I mean, no one can take that away from you. That self-investment is everything, which is why now, whenever somebody does come to me, and since this experience, whenever somebody does come to me and asks if they should make any type of investment, no matter how good it sounds, I always say to them that I really don't think it's a good idea unless you first make an investment in yourself. So if you make a self-investment first, which is a significant self-investment, you become aware, self-aware, and you just start to become somebody who has more self-respect, more self-confidence, more self-love, more self-worth, and you build up this income that exists within rather than focusing on your outcome and what's without. Naturally, what's going to happen is the likelihood that you'll be able to succeed in future opportunities is going to increase massively, which is exactly what happened for me. So I always say to people, self-investment, then investment into your own business, and finally investment into other people's businesses or other assets. And if you don't take it in that order, where you start with a self-investment and then a business investment and then an investment into a business outside yourself, I can't force you to not listen to me, because at the end of the day, if you're an adult, you have your own money, you can go and make your own mistakes. But this was actually the main reason for why I decided that I was going to name my business Soul Business Empires. And it was because of this experience. It was because I wanted it to be so clear and simple that I was showcasing this belief that I had of it's important to go in this particular sequence and order of beginning with starting to work on you, individual, investing in yourself with your soul, and then investing into your business, and finally investing into other assets, other people's businesses. So that's why I created that name, because of what happened to me in this experience. So when I go back and I look at how it was for me, the main reason that I was coming in wasn't actually to start a business. It was, I already had my own business. I already had the thing that I was focused on, I was married to, right? And I was happy with that. I told him straight up, like, I'm not bothered about doing the business. I'm back. I just experienced, must have been a Matrix attack. Second time this has happened, not since a couple of weeks ago. But at least it's all working now. I don't actually know what happened because my Wi-Fi seems to be on the entire time. It's weird. But I've reset it and it looks like it's working all well and good right now. So if you haven't watched part one of this, then go back and take a look at that. This is the part two. So as I was saying, the guy who brought me in to this investment club that I truly respected, admired, and wanted to learn from as a coach, mentor, he also was doing his best to persuade me to go into business with him and start actually pushing this thing that they were able to make money from through recruiting more and more people. But personally, I felt like compared to what I had, which was an incredible 50-year-old company backed by a physical product that had genuinely changed my life and was going to for the next 35 years, me, my family, I was like, there's no way I'm going to make a switch here just for no reason. Welcome back, Yasmin. I apologize for that. My internet seemed to have a fit. Yeah. But I was just continuing on from my story from where I left it in the previous call. So, yeah, I was just talking about how when I met this mentor, he did his best to convince me to start this business, but I didn't really want to, even though I didn't think the product was bad that they were offering. I just felt like it was inferior compared to what I had in my own business. All I was there for was the assets. And these were digital assets, right? As I talked about before, like it was during the crypto NFT space. I wanted to learn everything that I possibly could about digital assets because I still believe, and I believed back then, that digital assets were going to be the future and are the future. Digital currencies, digital assets. I already had some digital assets. And this experience taught me of how valuable the digital assets that I actually owned were. So yeah, when I went through this experience, I basically was like, yeah, I'm going to come in, absorb as much value as I possibly can. And on top of that, I'm going to have these assets that can pay me money. So how it worked was this investment opportunity that they had back then, nobody really knew about it. But it was starting to gain some attention because around the time that I invested, if you know who Logan Paul is, Logan Paul did a podcast with the founders of this this thing, which when I actually look now, they weren't the founders of the full scam or scheme, whatever you want to call it. They were just the founders of a white label platform. White label means when you're able to essentially put your branding in front of another person's back-end software that they've got. So imagine like you've got something like Calendly, where you can book calendar calls through doing that and appointments. A white label version of that would be if you put your own branding on Calendly and then was able to also sell that as a product to the people. So that's what it was essentially. And the product that they were white labeling was this NFT product or project that was called the Meta Bounty Hunters. So you can look them up. I think you can still buy them on OpenSea, but nobody's really buying them anymore. They've lost their value. When I got mine, however, they were becoming quite expensive and they were raising in price from when people first got them. And the reason for why they were gaining so much traction was because in order to make an NFT project, a project that is supposed to be a decent project, it wanted to encompass having a few different qualities. And I did my research. Like I actually looked into what makes a good NFT project, what makes a good crypto project. And all of them were saying the same thing. So one of them, they were saying that it has to have a good use case, meaning that the NFT is not just a picture, but it's actually something of which people gain value by owning the NFT. So some use cases of NFTs, Gary Vaynerchuk, he had NFTs where people would be able to come to his live events and they'd get tickets for free. So that's one example of a good use case. Another use case, Snoop Dogg would like let people hang out with him for a day or whatever if they owned one of the NFTs. So it was the use case that was attached to the NFT that made it something that would be valuable. That was the first thing. The second thing that would make a good NFT would be not necessarily artwork. The artwork isn't really that important. The branding, I would say, would be important. Who is the representatives of the company, and do they have a good reputation, things like that. So again, with this project, I already knew who one of the main guys was that was endorsing this project. And he was actually someone who had significantly impacted me from the way that I was studying his content, because he was responsible for doing the Instagram branding, social media branding for celebrities like Taylor Swift, Kim Kardashian, like just some of the biggest names in the industry. It was him that was behind all of it. And not only that, but he'd actually built businesses very successfully before then, from the age of like being a kid. So I was looking at who was behind the project, and I was like, wow, this is really great. Logan Paul's getting in on it, endorsing this thing. And also another big thing that you got to look into with these NFT projects is the community behind it. So if it's just one guy that's like launching a pump and dump where they're putting a lot of money into the marketing and then people are buying it, but there's no real community foundation before it's launched, then it's not a good idea to go into that project. So that makes it less valuable. Doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't invest. It just means that you probably shouldn't invest higher amounts. So these were like the main three aspects. And this project, when I looked at it on paper, I was like, wow, this is perfect. And the reason for it was also perfect because of the use case is because I didn't actually touch on this, but this was the first NFT project where they were actually paying out what was called a reflection. And a reflection was essentially a payout that you would get every single week, month, depending on which ones you had. And they weren't huge sums. So you probably put in about £2,000, something like that, for one of these NFTs. And each week you may get reflections on that of £40, £50, which, if you think about it, add that up for 4 or 5 NFTs. I mean, for a lot of people, that can be similar amount to what you'd get for having a property on rent. So I started looking at this and I was like, just doing the numbers in my head, thinking, whoa, this would be great if this actually works. And for the first year or so that they were doing it, it was actually something that was working. So when you go onto the interview with Logan Paul and you see exactly what they've said, and there's proof to show this too, how much people were coming out and sharing their wins, etc. Like, people were genuinely getting paid. The person who introduced me into this opportunity as well, like, she was getting paid and she showed proof. So I was like, okay, this could be great. You know, if it's a long-term project by great people, I really saw all green lights, you know, green flags for an investment that was enough to have some type of risk that I could have reward, but not too risky that it looked like a complete fugazi, a complete scam. So this was actually, for me, like a really sensible option that I was going for. It wasn't just myself that thought this. It was other entrepreneurs. It was other highly successful people who had been around the block, done their research. We'd all come together. We'd agreed. So it wasn't like this impulse buy or anything like that. It was genuinely well thought out. I didn't just jump into it. I actually thought about it for like a month or two. I told many people about it. Every person I told basically said to me, that actually sounds great. If you invest into it first, then let us know how it works. We'll invest into it afterwards. And so what ended up happening was it was about a couple of months in, after I got already tons of value from this investment club, enough for me to be satisfied with my investment that I made. I got the money together, around about £10,000, to invest into these digital assets. And I was so excited. I was like, this is going to be the first time I'm going to get to experience having passive income. I had massive hopes for it. And I was already planning like my escape plan to no longer work in my job and everything like that. But what ended up happening was I successfully bought my NFTs. I ended up buying about 5 of them. They all look really cool. Put them into my crypto wallet, which was MetaMask back then. And I was ready to get my first reflections. So I had to wait about 2-3 weeks, something like that, or I can't remember however long it was, but after I invested. And after that period of time, when I was about to get my investment, we actually had a group chat where all the investors were in, they were getting their reflections, and they were happy. And on the day where people were about to get their reflections, I remember basically everyone was super excited, including myself. This is going to be my first bit of passive income. So I didn't know exactly when it was going to be, but I was waiting up until like midnight, right on the dot, whenever they were going to send it. And it didn't come straight away. So I was there waiting to click this button because you have to connect your wallet somehow to the website. And then this is where I got scammed. So what ended up happening was the guy who was the founder of the club, he was on a call and he was doing a call to like 100 people or whatever. And whilst he was on the call, he actually got sent a link, which was a link to the website for the Meta Bounty Hunters, where it basically said on there that the reflections are ready. You can go on, connect your wallet to the website, and you'll be able to access your reflections. And he received that link from another person that he trusted. So because there was just so much trust within this community, which is what I felt as well, because they had it all protected, he, without thinking, just sent that link into our group chat. And as soon as he did, I clicked on it straight away. First person, I think I was the only person to click on it. And I connected my wallet to the website, which had about £10,000 worth of NFTs in there. And after doing so, I basically lost all the money. And the reason why is because the link that was sent was a phishing link from a scammer that essentially replicated that website and made another one that looked just exactly the same, and was taking money from any person who also fell for it. So as soon as that happened, it was crazy because about a minute later, one of the other guys who wasn't the founder but was still an admin in the chat was like, "Don't click on that link." And for me, it was already too late. I'd already seen the money go. He says, "Don't click on that link." And I'm like, oh no, this is real. This is happening. Like I've just lost like 10 grand overnight, a year's worth of work. So I text him straight away and I was like, bro, like I clicked the link and I connected my wallet and I've lost everything. And straight away he gives me a call and he's like, bro, he was super annoyed, sad for me. And also the founder, once he found out, he jumped onto the call. He was super apologetic because he knew like how much I was one of the, best students in the club that was coming to every session, etc. And it was definitely a tough thing, but from the whole time that I had the conversation, I never got angry. I never got upset. Was that the right thing to have as a reaction? I'm not sure. But one thing I do know is that I didn't exactly have any resentment that I held to any of the people, because it was like a genuine accident. The person who scammed me was the one that created the link, and I don't believe either of them did. Because if they did, then they would have scammed everybody in the chat. But it was just me. So yeah, after that happened, he basically said to me like, "Yo, we've got another investment, and this investment is actually like the one where people put in not just 10K, but people put in 50K to even be a part of this. So I want to give you that one for free, essentially. But in order to activate it, you actually have to put money in." And I lost all my money at that point. So the name of that second investment was a name of a trading platform, which was called a PAM. And they were doing AI trading. And it was run by a guy who apparently had not had like a lost trading day in years, or just one. I did my research on this guy. It looked epic. He was doing trading for people like Floyd Mayweather, doing trading for like big celebrities. I just thought, well, this is awesome. Like I get to be in an investment like this. But to be honest, I after that just thought to myself, this may be a sign for me to stop having this shiny object syndrome and truly go all in with my business, because it was showcasing to me that maybe I just had a lack of self-belief, because I could have taken that £10,000, put it into advertisements and grown my own business. But I wanted the success. I didn't want the work. I didn't want the responsibility. And that was a learning lesson for me. I also felt grateful for it straight away, because I was like, this is going to be an epic story that I'll tell one day, as I am now. And it will actually prevent a lot of people from losing a lot of money. That's how I felt. So, yeah, with the way this all transpired, I didn't really want to keep on investing into that company. And it was only today where I didn't even know that this was real, because I actually went, and when I was thinking about this topic to talk about in this story, I was just going to talk about this part, but I didn't even know this next part. So I went online, I just checked out the website, Meta Bounty Hunters, to see if they were still active and alive. And what I ended up finding out was that they were being sued, this group of people, this company, and they were being sued for a lawsuit where they'd stolen over like 500 million worth of investors' money. Now, not all of that was stolen, because some people did make money back, but the way that it's being portrayed now is like, it sounds as if it's almost like a Ponzi scheme, of which some investors literally lost hundreds of thousands of pounds. Like one of the guys, I actually know who he is, because he's a real estate investor, and he knows what he's talking about. He's super successful. He's got tons of wealth, but even him, at the level that he's at, he managed to lose £1 million. So, or $1 million, wherever it was. So this is the significance of this, is that no one is protected. No one, or not necessarily protected, but no one is completely safe. And the truth is that the higher that you go in terms of the levels that you want to reach, the more that you start to become a target to people that are going to essentially act as sharks and try to see you as prey and take your money. So it becomes important to have a level of protection around your assets. But what I would say is that one of the major problems that occurs when people become overprotective is that not only will the burn that would have got you in the first opportunity affect you, but it could be that you also get burnt twice from the same opportunity, because you will never be able to see clearly what an opportunity is as the objective value of what the opportunity is. And your subjective viewpoint is going to be tainted, that is distorted from what the reality is. But I believe that we're all on this kind of scale where, on the one side, you have a person that is overly cautious and extremely cautious. And then this other side, you got a person that is extremely naive. And for me, this was me. I was like extremely naive. For that investment, I think I was the most cautious I'd ever been, one of the most cautious that I'd ever been, but I was still pretty naive. And I had to come closer back to this balance space. So here's how I would look at it as well, is that if you have maybe been scammed, or you have missed an opportunity where you scammed yourself out of the opportunity because you've been burnt, look at it as an opportunity to reflect and see with more self-awareness as to where you're at on these extremes, because you don't want to miss out, ideally. Like if you look at the investments that I was talking about with these NFTs, like it wasn't a bad investment at the time. The reflections did stop eventually, but at the time it was a good investment. I just got scammed by being unlucky, and clicking the wrong link at the wrong time. So what it helped me to understand with all of this as well is that there's essentially a framework where you can become unscammable if you follow this framework. And it's very, very simple. All it is you want to be able to understand what is it that makes a scam possible. And the first thing is that they have to have somebody who is willing to buy something, right? Which is going to be you, the person buying into your opportunity. And when you're buying into your opportunity, you are either going to be susceptible to the scam because you have that naivety, or you are going to buy yourself out of a good opportunity because of how you've been burnt and your subjective lens. So that's the first element. The second element is you've got the person who's going to be doing the selling. And if the person is selling ethically, where they're persuading you, and through that persuasion, you are getting more of an opportunity to experience what it is that you want in your dream outcome, rather than the person who is trying to get something, or to get you to do something that they want you to do, not vice versa. That's when it becomes more unethical, which is why taking more of an approach in sales where it's more consultative, you have a high consideration for what the person truly wants, rather than it just being a thing where it's total marketing and there is no like real alignment process that occurs where you want to see if it's going to be a good match for the other person. So that's one thing. But the opposite side of that, where it's really dark and this is what makes something really a scam, is when people are manipulating you, when people are using deception, deceit, they're hiding truth, they're not being totally transparent, and being dishonest. That type of sales is, if you experience that, like, you're going to get scammed. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes you're going to have some people who look very honest, appear as honest people. They might be somebody who goes to the church, mosque, like every single weekday. They might be somebody who has kids. They might have a family. They might be somebody who says things that seem like morally virtuous. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're genuinely someone who has good character. That could actually be a performance and not the real authenticity. So this is where it becomes difficult. But the truth is, if you can actually develop a discernment by becoming someone who knows more about how to ethically sell, as well as knows the psychological ways that people will be manipulated, this can be great protection for yourself. A great book that I'd recommend reading would be Robert Cialdini's The Psychology of Influence, because this is really going into the psychology of how it all works. The more you understand psychology, the more that you will be able to protect yourself. And not just understanding psychology in general, but understanding your own psychology. Because if you know what your own psychology works like, for example, I'm more impulsive, whereas other people are more instinctual. So some people could get you into an opportunity, even if you're not impulsive, you're instinctual, by doing reverse psychology, right? So the more that you understand this, the more that you can see if a person is trying to manipulate you, right? As opposed to ethically persuading through transparency, openness, and high consideration. So that's the second part. And then the third part to this framework is where you're looking at the actual objective quality of the opportunity. Because sometimes it might be that you've been sold in a way which is perfectly ethical, and the person was fully honest, transparent, showed you every truth, answered every question, and wasn't hiding anything. But they themselves didn't think that the opportunity was anything wrong with it. They just made a miscalculation. A good example of that would be the Titanic. You know, when you look at the Titanic, the people that got on that ship, they genuinely believed that we're going to be able to get everybody to where we want them to go. This ship is unsinkable. And it was through miscalculations that a lot of people suffered, a lot of people died. But there wasn't exactly like unethical selling. They didn't manipulate people to get onto the Titanic. It was just an unfortunate circumstance through miscalculation. So this is preventable when you've done more research into knowing what is the objective quality of that opportunity. Because the truth is, with the Titanic, if people would have done the research initially to have seen the risk factors of not just how it was built, but if it does crash, like, and it does get shipwrecked, will they have enough boats? Anybody could have asked that simple question before they stepped onto the Titanic, but they didn't, right? And, you know, I'm saying this as somebody who has even been a victim of a scam. Like, it's so easy to take the approach of, you know, I'm the most unfortunate person. Like, I will never forgive the person who, you know, either made the mistake or was malicious against us. It's so easy to take the easy way out and believe that everything happened to you and you'll never jump into another opportunity again. It's easy to do that. Why? Because you never have to face the fact that, oh, maybe it was also partly because of my doing that I'm in the position that I'm in. So you don't have to take ownership, you don't have to take responsibility. And you're entitled to take that approach if you want to, because if it means that it makes you feel better, if you can potentially get reparations, then fair enough, right? You can get some closure on the experience. But I would say that 9 times out of 10, it's usually not the case where someone has been both malicious and manipulative intentionally, as well as the case where someone is having an opportunity that is just totally broken, doesn't work, or anything like that. The way that I see human beings and humanity, I'm someone who's a little bit more optimistic, somebody who I guess, sees things in a more positive light is that most entrepreneurs, they just don't get good results in business if they're not doing honest business. Now, of course, there's some business models where you don't actually need to rely so much on testimony, results, things like that. But most business models, like if a person isn't able to deliver on promises, then it just comes to a halt. So the founders like never really want that to happen. They truly want it to grow. Like that's their main intention, which is why I believe that, you know, a big part of it is that if you have been someone that has been betrayed or like a victim of a scam, then the first area that you want to look at for your own growth is to look at yourself in the decision that you made. And it's kind of like what I was saying with how I had my experience where even though there were so many green lights in quick succession, there was one red flag that I ignored very early on. And that was my instinct kicking in and being like, yeah, you should probably do more due diligence or be slower with it, whatever it is. But I ignored that. Sometimes there's just no green red flags whatsoever. So if that's not showing up for you, then of course, like there's nothing that you could have done different. But if you did genuinely feel like resistance come up, or you felt like there was some manipulation that happened, you felt like you may have been ignoring certain aspects of the objective quality of the opportunity, then it might be that it's on you because you didn't listen to your own intuition and there was self-betrayal there. And that's a tough pill to swallow. But if you're willing to swallow that pill, then it can only be beneficial for you, because now when you look at a new opportunity, you're able to, number one, make sure that you're looking at it from a fresh pair of eyes, no subjectivity, more objectivity, and you can listen into the intuition as to whether or not this feels good. Because I believe we all have that power within us to strengthen our intuitions. Now, not all of us have that. And if you don't have a strong intuition, then you're probably likely to scam yourself somehow. And as I said, you don't just scam yourself into opportunities, you also scam yourself out of opportunities. Because think about it. Like, let's say that there was a genuine opportunity that was presented to you that was the absolute perfect opportunity, could have been $1 billion opportunity. You would have thrived in the opportunity and you had everything, right place, right time. But because you were so scarred and so wounded and so burnt by the previous one and hadn't done the healing to overcome that, then now you've missed out, and you could have missed out on like $1 billion. So which one is more costly? You know, is it to miss out on the billion, or is it to miss out or to lose like 5,000, 10,000 pounds, losing a year? And I believe this is actually why I'm more predisposed to take risks, jump into opportunities, lose some money from time to time. I'm more predisposed to do that because if there's the potential that it could go to $1 million, $1 billion, or whatever, and it does that, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I would literally be like, no, how did I make such a grave mistake? I could have had all of this. So that's where my mind personally goes. And I know that everybody's not like that. But what I would say is that if you also agree with me that the cost of missing out is actually more sizable than the cost of entering, then that's where I would fall back on that framework of beginning with a self-investment, then a business investment, and then finally with an investment outside of yourself. Because no matter what, you'll come out of the opportunity feeling like I did, feeling like, yeah, I actually came out on top. Because even though it ended up costing me 15K for that experience where I expected to get more financial returns, but I got nothing. Even though it cost 15K, I genuinely think I probably got 50 to 100K worth of value easily. So I'm happy. I'm actually good. But I would never have had that experience if I just went into this investment club and they were offering all of this mindset, personal development stuff, and I didn't take any of it on board. I was just like, yeah, you know what, just here for the money. So let me ignore all of this other stuff that I can get in terms of value extraction. So my mindset back then was always self-investment, self-investment. But yeah, I mean, even more recently, like as I within my business started to accumulate a lot more cash, a lot more money, I just found that there was way more manipulative tactics that started to come into play from people around me who were trying to get my money, and they were getting good. Sometimes I was just like wanting to give them the money because like, wow, that was some good sales that you did there. You deserve some money. Like that's kind of how I was. It's almost like rewarding good behavior. When really I should have been looking at my inner psychology. So the most recent time that I'd say that I've been scammed is like in the last year, where I was made certain promises that didn't get delivered in the way that I would have thought they would have. But I still got a ton of value. So it was weird when I couldn't really be totally angry at the person because it did genuinely change my life. But at the same time, didn't necessarily deliver on everything that I thought they would have. So, when that happened, I felt like this is now the time where I've got to stop relying on just knowing the psychology of how other people will manipulate and the tactics that they may use, but now to really start looking in the mirror and being like, what is it that actually makes me make bad decisions when I'm in the proximity of other people who are the ones that don't have my best interest at heart and are willing to manipulate. And that really led me towards looking within and seeing that, yes, there's some psychology that has to be understood. I have to become more aware of what am I like when I get into a stage of panic or a stage of fear. I'm put under pressure. Because when I'm operating from my higher self, like I don't really have as much of an issue. I don't have as much of a problem dealing with people. When it's from my lower self, that's when things start to spike up. And I didn't really know like how I could be easily manipulated. But what I learned was that from the experience, I actually have developed something that's called, not from that experience, but actually from my childhood, I've developed something that's called a savior complex. And how that works is where you may have, when you're younger, had to witness people around you that you loved and cared for who needed help, needed rescuing, needed support because they couldn't do it for themselves. And so as a child, like you rush towards them, trying to help. And then as you get older, that inner child never forgets that trauma and continues to rush towards saving other people that play the victim or are being victims. You develop like the savior complex, hero complex. So the thing about that is that it's not psychologically a healed person that is actually operating from the highest place, because the highest place is not a savior complex. It's being someone that's genuinely in service, not because of this attachment or this fear, but it's coming from a place of love and wholeness and integration. So for me, my savior complex has come because of, simply put, like the way that my mum showed up as more so the victim as we were growing up, and the love that I had for her meant that I always wanted to save her as much as I possibly could. And as I got older, and like I was saying, my business getting scammed and things like that, it was when this panic would set in, the savior complex would come out, and I'd actually feel the terror, the chaos around me. And rather than looking at, oh, I'm in danger, I'd see it like, who's in danger over here? Who can I go and save at this point? And that's where I was most susceptible, because people would play on that. The best example that I can give here is, if you've ever seen The Lion King, then the one that had the savior complex in that was Mufasa. And this is why Scar was able to kill him in the movie. It was because he knew that if he put Simba in the gorge, that Mufasa would run in and he would end up being able to kill him at that point. So yeah, it's something that can happen for great kings who are like literally some of the best that we can think of, that seem noble, that seem honorable, that have good intentions, but it's to their own detriment. And if you have someone that's going to play upon that, then yeah, you can end up losing yourself. So this is what I've learned. And what you want to learn as well for yourself is like, what is your default that you go to in panic mode, or when things get tough, you're in a stressful position? And what kind of traits do you start showing? What kind of complex comes out? What kind of identity? Maybe it's the damsel in distress that needs saving, right? And as soon as a hero comes along, like, there you go, you're in. And it's so important to know this stuff, because you never really want to be making an important life decision of making a significant investment. Like for me, £10,000, a year's worth of salary, that was significant. You never want to be making these important life decisions from a place of fear and panic, right? So what I recommend during that time is that if it does come up, it might not necessarily be that the opportunity itself inherently is a bad opportunity. It might just be that you have to sit with the fear, start to understand more about it, and then allow yourself to raise your vibration, come to a place of love and presence, and make the decision from your intuition, divine inspiration, rather than it coming from distortion. So yeah, I would say, again, like in the beginning, I was talking about how one of the worst ways that this can have an effect on us, if we do get scammed, if we do get burnt, is that we never want to do business ever again at a high level, because subconsciously there's this fear that you could end up becoming the villain that had an effect on you. And that can cause resistance. That can cause you to stop moving. So that's exactly kind of what happened for me, where I really did come to a halt, because I was like, yeah, I just don't want to become the villain. I don't want to become that evil person. But it doesn't have to be either extreme. It could be that there is a higher path, a more mature path, where you become morally virtuous and you actually focus on doing the right thing by people, by learning exactly how to ethically sell, because it's no excuse to sell unethically to people just through ignorance. So learning how to ethically sell, this will protect you from becoming that person. Number 2 is learning what actually makes a quality opportunity, and before you start offering it to other people, making sure that it's a solid investment that people will be able to get their returns. So develop the conviction within that. And once you're 100% sure that what you have is real, it works, people will get value from it 100%. Once you know that in your heart, that's going to protect you from becoming that villain. And then the final aspect is, the way that people buy, which is something of which you can't exactly control. This is outside of your control, but you can have boundaries, and you can make it so that people are not allowed to buy unless it's done from a particular state, right? And in certain cultures, when you go to different countries, like this is actually very normal. Like people, the way that they buy, like they literally will ask you a question. I can't remember which country it was, but someone was telling me, like, they ask you when you're about to pick up some food, it's like, how much do you want to pay for this? And the person's like, whatever. And whatever they say, person's happy to take it. Another good example of this is in California. Recently, Will Smith's son, Jaden Smith, has actually set up a food place. I can't remember exactly what it's called, something like I Love You Food or whatever. And the whole idea is that you don't have to pay anything. It's free. But if you do want to pay, then pay whatever you like and pay for the other people that are coming in if you're someone that has means. And it works really well to the point where they're setting up more of them, but it's not done for the purpose of like just profit making. It's done because he wants to make sure that that people are actually paying for something and paying what they believe is the value, and offering access to homeless people. Like that's a big part of why he's doing it. But what I'm saying is that if you set these standards of who you are as a person with your leadership, character, integrity, then it'll make sure that you will always have pure cash flow that's coming in that doesn't get polluted, doesn't get tainted, and you don't have customers that are having any animosity, anger towards you. So yeah, that's what I would say there, because for me personally, that was one of the biggest mistakes that I made in my business, is that I didn't have enough boundaries in place where I just let people buy, even when deep down I kind of knew that the way they were buying was from a place of fear, a place of lack, scarcity, and not fully understanding like everything that they were getting. But I just had so much conviction in my heart that like what we're offering was genuinely going to be valuable and changing their life, but that's not enough. If you truly want to like protect your reputation, because the thing is, once you start losing your reputation, it can take years to build up, but it can go in a second, and people may never forget as well. So here's the thing: at the end of the day, when you're first getting started out in business, you're always going to make mistakes. You can't be perfect, and you got to be willing to take risks. But today I've explained a lot as to how you can avoid making some mistakes, how you can avoid like making how you can take risks and it not cost you so much. So if you apply some of what I'm talking about, it will help. But one thing that I'm personally learning is coming out of this savior complex, stepping more so into my new identity, the sovereignty architect. What I'm realizing is that there are some things of which people just have to experience pain, because it's what God has ordained for that person to learn the lesson through what he can only give them in that pain. And you can be somebody that can interpret the pain for them by giving them certain medicine with your wisdom and interpreting for them what's happened, helping them. But you can't experience their pain for them. That's not something that you can do. As much as we see, like in one of the main stories biblically that everybody knows about, like the story of Jesus Christ, I think what people don't necessarily interpret from that story is something of which is what a lot of psychologists now are actually saying is not a story of someone who was completely perfect, but his imperfection was that he did get killed. So it wasn't like the prophet that did everything completely as a person should. Like that was a dark part of that story. I think it was pretty clear, even though he resurrected. But if you look at the Prophet Muhammad, like he never sacrificed himself in that way, and that's why as Muslims, like we say he's the most whole, integrated, complete example of what a leader should be like, right? So yeah, in the beginning, you can make mistakes, and if you lose your reputation whilst you're still under six figures, whilst you're still getting started, whilst you're still only new, I'd say even before you're seven figures, like if you lose your reputation, it could be a handful of people that are aware of this, and the world is massive. So you always have another chance, you always have another opportunity. It just might be harder. So it's good to bear these things in mind, to protect yourself, number one, first and foremost, and also to make sure that you protect your reputation, you do right by people, you maintain that integrity, you sustain the flow, and naturally, just by serving people the best, making sure that they're buying correctly, as well as serving them how they should be served within your opportunity, then you can't really go wrong. It's really just about not just being a good person, but making sure that you are being totally honest with yourself, taking a good look in the mirror and seeing where you're not a completely perfect person, because none of us are. And if we start pretending that we are, then that's how we become susceptible to these threats. So, yeah, I've just seen the time. We're an hour and 20 minutes in. Yasmin, are you still with us?
I'm here, totally.
Awesome.
I can relate to a lot of this completely.
Yeah.
So it's like right up my street, this topic. But
Which part could you relate to?
all of it, the scamming bit. But I think I was just telling something now. I think I have like these moments. Okay, I've been scammed. A lot of it has not been scammed. It's just been me not at the right mindset at that time. It's just the timing was awful. For whatever reason, certain things didn't work out. But the times when I did get scammed, I got over it like super quickly. Because in my mind, I thought, okay, it was like, like you said, your intuition sort of tells you, it gives you the signs, and you're like, okay, whatever, I'm not listening to that. I'm going to do it anyway. So in hindsight, like everything, oh yeah, I should have like listened to that, or I should have listened to this, or whatever. But like, you were still meant to go through that experience for a reason.
Mm-hmm. There was something you had to learn.
That's the learning process that's maybe molding you for something else later on, or teaching you a lesson that you need to know. So I don't regret anything like that. And alhamdulillah, like, all praise to God. Whenever I've actually lost through a scam, I feel like the real scam, I've always gotten more back in other forms.
Yeah.
If you let it. So I think it's that trust and that submission when you said, okay, whatever Allah would, I didn't listen or whatever, my intuition, and I went for it anyway. But I submit now, and I know that I've been taught a lesson for some reason, and I let it go. I don't have any animosity towards whoever was it, whether they did it intentionally or unintentionally, whatever, whether it was a mistake or whatever. I had some, I have to take ownership for some of it also, my naivety or my lack of, I didn't do enough research, whatever it is. But the fact is that I had to go through that experience, and I accept that, and I move on super quickly. And I've seen, things get better like instantly, financially or whatever, even the way I feel, everything. And I don't hold on to anything. And that helped me, I think, not give up on the next opportunity that came my way.
You've got it. Because the way that you respond to these experiences is everything. Like it will literally
Yeah.
determine how you like change as a person. You know, there's the way that I view it. There's essentially like three things that could possibly happen after you have one of these experiences, and I'm glad that I I haven't gone for the first one every single time, but I have definitely experienced that, and that was hard.
Yeah.
So the first thing that can happen, which can happen to any of us, because we just feel like it wasn't our fault whatsoever. The first thing that can happen is once you've been scammed, then you've been burnt, and now like you just don't want to talk to anybody um, ever again. Like you're just literally like still holding anger, still holding resentment, um, and feeling that shame. So if you if you keep the wound, then essentially what you're doing is you're hurting yourself throughout the experience. So the person who scammed you is winning.
Yeah.
You know, so the approach really wants to be like, why let that other person win by making you truly lose? Because when you're experiencing those negative feelings of shame and guilt and resentment, anger, all of this, you are losing the best thing that you can possibly have in our
Mm-hmm.
life, which is connection to source, connection to God. So
Yeah.
once you become disconnected, everything in your life will get worse, right? But if you stay connected, even though you may have lost money, like at least then they're not winning. They're the suckers, but
Mm.
they may have gained money quickly, but what they lost was integrity. They lost like all these other things long term. But
Yeah.
you at least get to keep your peace. You get to keep all of that within. Um, and so you forgive them, not for them, but you do it for you. That's why you do that. Now, that's the second route, which is forgiveness. So forgiving is about clearing the energetic space and making sure that now you can still maintain your presence, move forwards, but you don't necessarily have to, when you forgive, like it's not about forgetting. As we were saying on another call, forgive is about giving, forgetting is about getting. So
Yeah.
when you give, then it's not about forgetting, it's about like taking yourself to that process of healing. And then finally, after that, there can actually be repentance.
Mm.
Because maybe in some opportunities where it was completely malicious, you were totally ignorant to it, they just straight up lied to you in
Mm.
totality. Like, and that's very rare, is what I would say. Like,
Yeah.
in most
Yeah.
opportunities,
Indeed.
you could have done something more to identify that it was fraud, it was a scam, or whatever. But in the opportunity where, like, you self scammed a little bit somehow, right? The same way that I would self scam by having my savior complex, and people would play to the ego, and I would rush to give money away when I didn't have to. And I would end up scamming myself that way. I would scam myself by being totally impulsive and ignoring the risks and downsides. So when you're scamming yourself, this is something that we can work on, right? So forgiveness is just about like the emotional healing, but the repentance is now the new embodiment of who you're becoming as the person that is no longer susceptible to those scams because you've changed your behavior. And that is
Mm.
true learning. True learning is not necessarily about what you can consume, what you can know and understand, but true learning is showcased by a change in behavior, a change
Mm.
in your character, right?
Yeah.
So it could be one of the greatest blessings that you ever have getting.
Mm.
And I remember like when I got scammed out like that 10K in a day, the guy actually that was calling me was saying to the founders like, wow, I'm just so happy that this guy's a Muslim because I said Alhamdulillah, like when it all happened, I was like,
Yes. Yes.
I'm grateful because of what I've gained and how it could have been different, and like the way that you guys have responded, like I'm grateful. So I said Alhamdulillah, I think this is going to be a great story in the future. I didn't know why, but that was wisdom. Wisdom is the instantaneous recognition that crisis is a blessing, and that's actually been one thing that's helped me to go through my journey of not being totally impulsive and still having that instinct within. Now, I don't think I've been perfect. I still think that there's been an impulsive side that's been there, but it was one of those experiences that's helped me to mature. So I believe a lot of people are just immature right now when it comes to opportunities. So if you are immature and it's like just the first one, it's like you were saying, it's just part of the game. At some point, if you just if you just accept that it's going to happen, it's part of the game. Then you can take a look at it from the aspect of, well, what if 90% of opportunities were all scams? Like, would you be willing to invest 10 times over for just one of them to work out?
Yeah.
It could be that it's in the same opportunity of the same person. It could be that 9 out of 10 times, they're going to give you something that doesn't work, a strategy that doesn't work for you, but the 10th time can work.
Yeah.
All
the time. And makes up for all the other ones that didn't work.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, that is the game, though, isn't it? It's true. Yeah. Like, I'm pressing the button. Because if you just went straight to that 10th one, for example, that was going to be successful, and you didn't have all this experience behind you, all this learning, all this training, basically it's training, you wouldn't be as
spiritual training.
Yes, you would fail, and then you would like, yes,
You keep failing
just part of the process. Yeah,
until you hit it. It's true.
Yeah.
But my problem before landing on Enagic was the shiny objects. I had it bad, like really bad. Like it's addictive, really. Because it's like you said, you just want to find the easiest thing where you don't have to do much, and you're like, this is gonna work. This is just gonna, easy. And but the fact is that nothing that comes easy stays with you. If it comes easy, it's gonna go easy. And my daddy always says that. He always said that to us. That if it's easy come, easy go. You have to
Exactly.
put some
Hello.
effort.
Hey, Tal, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing very
Put
good,
some
my brother.
effort
How you
in.
doing?
We're good, man. We're just talking about scams.
Scams or scams?
SCAM.
Interesting topic.
Spam's chicken.
What were you saying?
I think it's pretty much.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Taha. What were you going to say?
I thought you was gonna speak. I was pretty much gonna say unpopular opinion on scams, and I do think that they are more popular now.
100%.
They're a lot more scammier now.
I think two things there. One, it's more prevalent. It's easy. The same way that it's easier to start a business, it's easier to start a scam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm.
But that's probably why so many people are so afraid to try anything. Because they hear all these horror stories of other people's horror stories. They haven't tried anything yet, but it just stops them from even trying that first thing.
Yeah, which is them scamming themselves out of
themselves. Exactly. Yeah.
working.
Because this is the way that I view it as well, right? Like, if the education system that's been around for like 100 years, however long, and has been successfully scamming people every single year out of like 30, 50K, coming out of it feeling like, damn, I thought I was going to get so much more than what I actually gained. those people are probably like the most likely to get scammed by someone else, because that's not even like that much of an elaborate scam in this day and age, because everybody knows about it. Like millions, billions of people have gone through that scam. So if it's a new scam that no one has uncovered, it's a new scam model, same way that you have different business models. This is a new scam model, then you're a lot more likely to fall susceptible to it, because it could be done in such a way where the same warning signs that would have been given before are not necessarily there.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because, yeah, there's two ways of seeing scam. There's more on the government side of things, and there's more, how, polls and officers are, your typical scams like fraud. But it is interesting because there's so much things that people need to open their eyes for. I remember there was one time where I was looking at vehicle tax on a car, and I searched up. I was like, it's way too much spending that type of money on a car, and there's holes in the roads and everything. So I calculated how many cars there is. I don't remember that figure. You can search it up, but it must have been so much crazy, like 50 million cars are taxed in the UK. Okay, the average tax on a vehicle is possibly around £200, let's say. Now we're talking about billions. It's definitely not going on the roads, I'll tell you that. But where is it going to? No one's willing to answer that. No one's willing to ask either.
Road tax, isn't it?
Yeah. Probably going to all those
It's
construction workers
adding more cameras.
that just close off roads for like no reason.
Adding more cameras, adding more.
And it takes like 1 week to fix something, but there's no one working on it. Probably going to.
True.
No, 100%. I mean, we've all heard about a roundabout that cost 50 million. We all know that it definitely doesn't cost that much, but I don't know. I'd
The one in
like to
Hemel
say
Hempstead.
that the government's corrupt. Sorry, what did you say?
In Hempstead, Magic Roundabout.
Magic roundabout. Maybe that one. Was it that one?
I can't quite hear you guys. Sorry.
The one in Hampstead. The roundabout. The magic roundabout. Was it that
It's
one?
called the Magic Roundabout.
Yeah. But you can go both ways.
We've got some in my city that the council decide to invest the money, and it's called the Dutch roundabout.
Oh.
No idea what it is. No idea why they spent that money. It just confused everyone.
If it stops, it's probably
It bought one of the MPs like a nice holiday home somewhere.
probably going to go round in circles, go the other way, go round in loops.
Like a roller coaster. And we talk about these online scams and like business scams, but the biggest scammers are the government. I agree with them 100%.
And they just make and it breeds down to people just scamming people on a basic level.
Yeah, because the society is like that. You follow your leaders, and the leaders are stealing from everyone and corrupting. Then you're gonna do the
I'm
same
guessing.
thing.
And I want to really double down on what you said there, because I think Taha, it's a genius point that you brought up. If you look at the government, the Latin word of the government is gubernare, which means mind control. You can look it up.
Wow.
So
There you go.
Not something that is even hidden in plain sight. Like that's their brand.
I didn't know that.
It's literally what it means. It's to control the minds of people, which right now, like they just do it in a way where It's through mainstream media. It's through what's put in our water, what's put in our piping systems. It's through everything that we are actually eating in our foods. So they're controlling us to be in a lower vibration. Even music, right, is another thing that is a big control
100%.
system that keeps people in this low vibration. So, like, the government is the ultimate corrupt organization that is truly scamming people, because this is kind of like what we were talking about on the call a couple of days ago, where it's like, if you knew your true worth, then you wouldn't have an issue with your income, because you would be showing up in such a way where people would be paying you what you're worth rather than anything less. But through the mind control that people believe that, no, we have to work like trading our time for money in order to experience our full worth of who we are. So that's the real scam, is like making people believe.
Wholesale scam.
Yeah.
Sales scam proper. Cash and carry lead.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's very good to have that level of awareness. I mean,
100%, yeah, of course.
yeah, to understand how the world truly works as well. I mean, like I remember during COVID, I did lose faith in a lot of people because it just felt like we were just all trapped inside a hamster cage and we were just running on them. What do you call that, hamster wheel? Basically, just running and running and running. Next minute, there's a COVID outbreak and we have to stay inside homes. No one get out your houses. To the next week, or everyone come out, eat out to help. I remember this conversation I had with Mohammed a while back, because that really annoyed me, because how can you tell people to stay in the houses and then do a 50% off to everywhere? People are queuing in Nando's and no one was questioning about it, to be fair. No one did.
I was working during the night at that time. No problem. I was doing some deliveries.
That's what I'm saying.
You didn't have masks.
I was one of the 7 what was it? Most important workers.
Oh, the essential ones.
I was one of the 7, yeah. I fell into that trap. And everyone was cool. Everyone was home, but people were out working.
I think the truth is pretty much what Mohammed said earlier. They even show it to your face that we're controlling you, and people are just not questioning it
the
at
scary
all.
thing is how many people actually believe it and don't like to question it.
Yeah, of course.
I
But they
definitely
just
don't believe it.
refuse to question anything that the government says. And I can't understand that, really.
No, 100%. I did not get
With
my
mind control,
vaccination.
government.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
Mind control.
But it's understanding how are they controlling you?
I want to know
to eat out
why.
to help out.
I
Why?
think it's conditioning, isn't it? Conditioning from a young age. And
What's
not
the
just us,
reason, though?
the generation before us were so conditioned, and that's passed on to the next generation, to us as well.
The truth is, I'd love to answer that question, but I feel like Mohammed got a much better answer. Mohammed, why do you think the government is trying to control us?
Well, it's the same way that I view narcissists in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
If you're somebody empathic and you're being abused by narcissists, like they're literally taking from you, and it's emotionally abusive, physically abusive, like any of these things, then you're going to feel the pain a lot stronger than the narcissist will, because they don't even have the ability to be empathetic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, as much as spiritually we know, like, we're all connected, if you are hurting one person in the Ummah, the body, then it's going to hurt everyone, including yourself. The people don't necessarily feel it. And maybe only later on down the line, that's when they feel the remorse from it. But that's the main thing that I believe with it is that, the reason for why it's set up is because they're just not that bothered about it, not that inclined. But if somebody gave them all of the pain that existed from the people that they're affecting, to just hold that pain for like one moment, they wouldn't even be able to bear it for one moment.
Yeah.
But
How do they wake up in the morning? How do they sleep at night? Crazy, man.
that's
We have a
the
conscience, that's why.
Can you?
yeah. I think the other thing as well, right? So there's that type of reason for why, like they don't exactly have much of an incentive to change the system, because if you're predatory and parasitical over people who are losing and you're not exactly connected to them, you're really separated in your penthouse in Beverly Hills, then that's like one aspect of it. But then I'd say the other thing is that I believe people who have just kind of been born into it. So, they may have grown up with parents that were Rothschilds or parents that were, some of these elite that created initially this parasitical system. And so now they're born into it, and they're not necessarily the ones that will feel the same guilt that you would feel if you was to set it up yourself, and they might not exactly feel as responsible. So, how I view the way that things will shift is going to be that system itself will come to a collapse. And in history, there's been many civilizations that have raised and fallen. The Egyptian civilization is an example of that, where it was a tyrannical civilization, but it also fell. So another good example of that is the civilization in the time of the Prophet Muhammad. That is also another one that fell. So in the same way that has happened in the past, I believe that it's possible that, and not just possible, but most likely, that any corrupt system, any system that isn't balanced in terms of how it's allowing for everyone to not necessarily feed off of each other, but to allow for what nature already has to offer to be the sustenance for people's life, then I feel like that's where the world will self-correct towards. Because it's probably not necessarily an extreme case where it's, communism. I don't think that that's the best approach, and I don't think that raw extreme capitalism, which ends up becoming not even capitalism, but it's almost a form of totalitarian regime where there is a few select group of people at the top and everyone else is on like. I feel like it should be something that's in the middle, where it's got a balance of where you get rewarded for being like a competent individual in society, but there's also fairness that's distributed within the economy.
Yeah. I see. It's like, they have these people. I was listening to a podcast earlier about the eugenics, and you think to yourself, like, how did these, like the Nazis? Okay, we hear about the Jews that they killed and all that, but they didn't start off with them. They started off with the disabled, and then moved on like to the next one, blacks or whatever. They just sort of were narrowing the line. Like we don't think that this genetic line is, good enough, so we'll just kill them off and then we'll move on to the next until we have this perfect race with the perfect genetic code and all of that. And you think, how do people actually
is that what he
think
wanted?
that way? Why? What makes them think that way? They must be seriously deranged or brainwashed or something to make them
Is that what
do what they did?
Is that what the plan was then?
Yeah. And they're still around now. The Nazis are not big anymore, but they have their cult spread around the world. There are people like them that still believe. Look at Bill Gates, for example. He's a eugenic. That's all the experiments they've been doing in Africa.
Yeah.
Because they don't believe that Africans should reproduce and have more and make more Africans because in their mind they are inferior and we need to get rid of them. So there's more for us. The better race. There's more for us.
Yeah.
That's their mentality. And how do you fight a mentality like that? It's impossible. Because for them, they are right. There's no, you can't appeal to their conscience. So there's nothing there.
Yeah, and suddenly Ebola comes or something or this and that.
Many viruses that they've created and experimented with, and they've experimented with it in Africa. Why? Because of the same reason.
Malaria.
And people like this don't stop. It's inbred. Their children will learn it, and it goes on from generation to generation. It never stops. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. It's funny how we come to talking about this now because the way that it sort of started off was more about on the level of the individual, and now it's moving on to the elites,
The big
and yeah, I think for me, what I'm kind of seeing here is I remember back when a couple of years ago, around the time that I was talking about this scam experience too. Around that time, I was really getting into all of these conspiracy theories and educating people around the oppression of how things like breaking up the Latin word of government, things like that. So this is when I really felt like I was doing part of my purpose as well. But I don't know, I just stopped diving deep into that. But I really feel like it's just so important now more than ever for people to wake up to the prison that truly exists, so they can know the magnitude of which they've been affected. Because when you do start realizing how much that you have been controlled, your family has been affected, and it's just total corruption, it will probably get you mad, it'll get you angry. And I felt like that the first time that I started to wake up as well. I was genuinely wanting to just go and fight someone because of how upset I became through the injustice. So yeah, I feel like I want to maybe go even deeper into that rabbit hole because that way I can really start helping others to wake up to that reality too. Because some people are living on their government like they're the best people and will never stand up to them even. But I look at other great leaders over the last 100 years, and that's one of the things that they were willing to do is actually stand up to oppressive regimes. And I think that part of the reason for why now, like, we're not doing that as a society anywhere near as much is because the control systems have done a good job of actually removing the masculinity from lots of men who usually would be the ones that would stand up towards injustice. And it's probably part of the reason why I haven't stood up as much as of recent, is maybe because I've not been as much in my masculine as well.
I think one thing as well is I remember it's a saying, and it's a very old school tactic, and I feel like it's definitely, if you're talking about the UK, I feel like the UK definitely suffers from this, and it's something that's happening at the moment, and that is to divide and to conquer. I feel like a lot of people have different views on things, and we all want the same thing, yet we want it differently, and that's why we can't really. That's why the thing that's going on in the UK right now is just so messy right now. And yeah, you can have people talk, but it's not always the right people with the right message. I think that's a big issue as well. It's definitely that we're not united.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's, again, like one of the agendas of the parasitical elite is to make the enemy look as though it's not who the enemy actually is. Like when you look at any movie where you've got the villain, the smart villain will actually make it look like the enemy is not the villain, it's somebody else.
Apologies, do you mind repeating that? You like that?
Yeah, so I was just saying that that's one of the plays of the ego and the enemy or the devil is that the villain won't make you think that they're the villain if they're smart. Only someone who has low intelligence would do that.
Absolutely.
The villain, what they're always going to do is they're going to actually make you believe that someone else is the one that you should be attacking. Same way that if you look at, even in religious stories, it's always what's happened where the one who was actually trying to save humanity was the one that ended up getting locked up. Someone like, we always talk about this one, Yasmin, Nelson Mandela. Like, how could Nelson Mandela, of all people, get locked up?
Yes.
You know, how could he be the villain in that story? But it's just how he was framed.
One person's villain is the next person's hero. But if that leaders like that were willing to fight against the system, even though they were, pushed down like in every way, but it didn't stop them, and they taught that to the next generation. Because Madiba wasn't the first one; there were people before him, but it was passed down to him, and it's that sort of resistance that we have to teach the next generation. Don't just accept whatever's being fed to you, whether it's via media or social media, whatever it is. You have to learn to think for yourself. Does this seem right? Like, is this logical? Like, even with the whole COVID thing, okay, we started off wearing the mask, and eventually we were like, this is just like doesn't seem right. So if you're not willing to think outside the box and think logically and critically, then you'll just be a hamster in a cage forever. So I think it's important to think critically and teach the next generation to do the same, so they don't get caught up in this big scam, the biggest scam.
So that again, Yasmin, I didn't actually hear you at the end. I think it kind of lagged out. What were you saying?
Is it me? Did you not hear me?
Yeah, you.
I think I found my thing going. It's telling me it's time to go to bed. But I was saying, like, it's important to teach the next generation to be thinkers, not just consumers.
And not just thinkers, but also
Doers.
not just doers, but like, I want to say raising them to become warriors to some degree.
Yeah.
Because like when you think about every other generation, people will have at some point been initiated into like having to go through conscription in the army, or if it wasn't that, like you would just go through some type of initiation where you would learn how to fight, learn how to protect yourself. But nowadays, how many people know how to defend themselves?
This topic can go down a real wormhole right now. I can feel it because I've got like a lot of opinions about what you just said. But I don't think a lot of people would appreciate what I have to say, especially the woke people, because no one wants to hear that, isn't it? I don't think it's just by accident that we have more, the pop cultures now. I don't know if you've seen it, but like all the men look like women, and you're meant to be more feminine, whereas and the women are meant to be more masculine and take charge. But it's just corrupting that whole system that we have, the whole human system. So when it does come time for to fight back, we have no men that are manly enough to fight back. We have women that think they are, but they're not. So where does that leave us? It leaves us afraid, and that's the best kind of people to control.
Yeah.
When you're afraid, it's very easy to control. That's how COVID works, basically. When people are afraid, it's easy to control them. And you're not able to fight back physically. So you just stay in your little hamster cage again.
And it's as people say, if you don't stand for anything, then you will fall for everything.
Yep.
So, I mean, I can definitely look back over the things that have happened over the last few years with COVID, etc. And to be honest, I could completely see how it was a load of bullshit. But I was never really the one that would speak out against it. I wouldn't go on social media talk about it. I wouldn't do that because to me it just felt futile. It felt like, what's the point? I'm not gaining anything from this. There's probably not going to be
I
a
lost
change.
a few friends talking about it.
What's that?
I said I lost a few friends. Whenever I post something on Facebook or something.
Fair enough. Yeah, but
I could not do anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. The other big one now is like the whole Palestine thing, and again,
Yeah.
I personally don't like to get so involved with that one, just because you've got to kind of like tune into the news all the time in order to get the updates on it. It didn't really personally affect me as much, but that's another one where some people will just kind of sit back and not exactly form an opinion about it just because it doesn't affect them.
Yeah, I think I've been like very vocal about Palestine for many years now. since I went there. Before then, I didn't know much. Like I knew we had to go there at some point now, and then go to other time, see it, and bring the message. But I didn't really know what the politics was that was going on there. And when I went and I saw it for myself, the experience like what those people are living through, I just could not say anything.
Yeah.
So if you scroll back in my Facebook, back to 2004 or 5, it's been constant since then. So this is that it's like subjects like this, it affects some, but like you say, when it's not affecting you personally, it's hard to like sort of take a stand,
Yes.
But when you've experienced or you've like met people that have experienced it or you've seen it for firsthand, it's hard not to take a stand. That's why I think there's so many people that are not even Muslim that are like so like their whole feed is just about this now. They've just changed like from whatever they were doing before to just because they can't not say anything. It's affected so many people in so many ways.
Yeah. And the other one that I remember was like the whole Black Lives Matter movement that came about. I think it was just around the COVID time as well, which again, like I didn't personally get super involved with just because one, it didn't personally affect me really. Like on that level, it was like one guy getting killed and it's happening all the time. So I was like, it felt more like a push of the agenda from the news rather than anything that was going against my rights.
Yeah.
I think even with the COVID thing, like again, I didn't feel too bad about it because COVID was some of the most fun time that I had. I just didn't abide by the rules. So the masks and stuff like that, I would never wear them. Out of defiance and rebelliousness, I would never wear them. But and I never got. But during that time, like I got put on a furlough scheme, meaning that I was getting paid for nothing, and I also was just in the summer playing sports like all day long. So I was like, this is great. But yeah, no, there was definitely a lot of lies that were being told, and I think that was the injustice that I probably should have spoken up about a little bit more, because that's one of the things that I want to stand up more for is the like you said, the corruption and the deceit.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're talking about from today is the deceit, because even things like what we spoke about with the government, mind control, right? Like that was just pure deceit, but it's plain deceit. It's like it's there for anyone who wants to do a little bit of digging, but people are being deceived all the time and they don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sleep early morning tomorrow.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna go now.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Been a good one.
Yeah, a different one, different vibe. I think it was needed.
Yeah.
Very interesting conversation. It definitely needs to be continued, to be fair.
Yeah, I think I'd have a lot more to say about this.
Yeah. Well, next time you take the call with me.
Yeah, no, when you just said like we were talking about injustice, I just remembered something from my childhood, and that's probably why I just can't stand like oppression and injustice. It probably stems from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I must have been like what, 3, 4. I still remember it. Yeah. Another day. Sorry for another day.
Look forward to hearing it. Look forward to it.
Alrighty.
Right. Thanks for coming.
Good night.
As always, take care. Until next time.
This one